Before us here are 3,779 burials, representing what now we have in our motherland: freedom, love, mateship. Many young men, not too dissimilar in age, gave all they had in such a very short time. As you walk and read their headstones and reflect on those who rest in this sacred soil, in Australia's finest spirit, forever stilled in the memory of family and friends. Real estate agents, farmers and lawyers all put their hands up and went from laughter, love and life to a battlefield with no guarantees of returning. Some did return, and with those who didn't, to this day, hold a bond that will never be broken nor forgotten. But the memories of their sacrifices remain.
Last year, I didn't really know much about the Kokoda track, and this year it's been part of our pre-season. We've been reading up on it, and I've learnt a lot. But to actually come here and walk the tracks and walk the hills and through the creeks that the diggers did, it means a lot to all the boys.
Fascinating aspects of this, when you have to think about it, is that, you know, the guys, you know, my age in a footy team who, you know, are coming towards the top, you know, the top end of their careers in terms of age. You know, the leaders of these platoons and these battalions, or more so the platoons and the companies, were, you know, 4 or 5 years younger than us. You know, they're 22, 23 years old, and the soldiers that were working under them are as young as the, you know, the young guys that have just come in. You know, like your Tommy Murphys and your Lance Franklins.
A week ago I didn't even have a passport, and all of a sudden I was drafted to Hawthorn, and I'm here in one of the most remote parts of the world and walking in the footsteps of blokes that basically saved Australia. I've just got a totally, like, an unbelievable opportunity to just do it and get an understanding of what they went through.
The thin Australian line held on the fronts despite continual attack between the 26th and the 30th of August 1942. Australia's first Victoria Cross of the South-West Pacific was won here by Private Bruce Kingsbury on the 29th of August.
All right, boys.
Okay, guys, we don't normally do this, but we're here at the Ishiwava Memorial Site and the battlefield site. We have an opportune time being here at night. You've heard of the 39th Battalion and what they went through at Kokoda. 4 to 6 weeks later, they arrived here at Ishiwava. Lieutenant Colonel Honor was a very astute leader. Lieutenant Colonel Honor knew that leadership is about confidence. So when these boys arrived back here 4 to 6 weeks later, they were already suffering from dysentery. They were already suffering from malaria because the tablets had been given to them too late. They'd had sleepless nights, and as you are sitting here, it would be pouring rain. But they would be in their pits, manning the gun, and maybe getting 3, maybe 4 hours sleep a night. Gentlemen, there were many, many others during the Battle of Ishiwava.
August 13th, 1942, Ishiwava. In front was north, behind was south. To the east a creek, to to the west thick, dense scrub. These were great obstacles to overcome. Isharava, the only flat part on the track, now stands a memorial of 4 marble pillars, each with a single word that represents the diggers of 1942. Courage, mateship, endurance and sacrifice. By August 26, 1942, physically the young warriors of the 39th Battalion were in poor shape. Average age of 18.5 years. Exhausted after relentless fighting, lack of food, sleep and shelter. Torrential rain fell afternoon and night. Soaked clothes, lonely nights and required to stand awake and alert, still, silent. All coming from an untrained background. At night, the Japanese would play games, make noises and whistle, keeping all our men awake and on edge. The light from the moon and stars was blocked by the dense treetop jungle canopy. No ground cover, maybe a shirt, trousers and a hat. As the Japanese made their move, attacking our defensive position on higher ground, the diggers held strong. Courage and sacrifice took over with 1 battalion, charging the Japanese, killing 8 and driving them back. With a 2nd 14th on their way, they were told to stay and fight until death. Here, we lost some of our finest sons.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Great work, Reece.
Well done, boys. All right, we've got a minute for lunch, then we're going.
Kokoda means to me what the Australians gave up and sacrificed for us. I mean, it was pretty... I didn't know a lot about it until we sort of read the book and stuff, but getting into it, what some of the guys did, sacrifices they made just for their mates and the country was just unbelievable.
There are a lot of help reporters, you'd be gone without them.
This is where they hit out. Japanese are over that side, the Aussies this side. The Aussies are the rectangle ones. If you do see circle ones around, they're going to be the Japanese one. It's by themselves they do. The Japanese, we do it in twos because we mateship. Courage, that's what it's about.
This walk's meant a lot to me so far, and I'm only 2 days into it, just to give you an appreciation of what, you know, the soldiers went through at 18 and a half years of age. Sort of hits home a little bit because you might be struggling at times, as we have been on this walk, but they went through a lot more, and the stories along the way just sort of probably embrace the 4 things: the mateship, courage, sacrifice and endurance that have got memorials up here as well. So I think it's a great thing for us as a group to do. Obviously it's going to gel us a bit closer.
Only 400 metres high, but an extensive climb to the 39th Battalion defensive position. With the enemy so close, Bruce Kingsbury shot relentlessly, killing nearly 20 Japanese soldiers by himself. With nothing but a Bren gun, put himself out there so his mates could safely withdraw.
Yep. Okay. Who am I? Come on, Bo. 6 left. Bo. Yeah, you go there. You go there. Yeah, them two. Right, so and Bo, you there. I'll go here, myself and Dicko. 2 on the back. Oh, you go, Ruffy.
Ready, go. Left. Ready? Left. 1, 2, 3, left.
If you asked me two months ago what the Kokoda track was, I wouldn't have had no idea, and what it meant to me was probably nothing. But now to see what it happened back in 1942, and then to experience as a club and do it with 40 blokes that you spend every day of your life with nearly, or 5 or 6 years with, or 10 years, it just goes to show that the mateship and the spirit between one group, if it's in Australia or here, is unbelievable. It's great. I should be laying on this thing.
You got to step down here. Talking in front. Coming for a step down. Keep talking.
Nice and easy there. Nice and easy.
Talk through the step. Easy on your footing there, Green. It's only 75 kilos, nothing to it, mate. Take it easy with the step. Slippery.
Step, boys.
Be careful back there. Work with that. Now watch out to your left.
Kokoda to me means quite a lot these days. I'll be lying to say that in the past that I knew a little bit about it, but obviously doing the trek and learning a lot about how the Australians fought off the Japanese and how the people of this country helped out the Australians. It means so much more. It's such a tough challenge going over the hills, carrying your packs with you, and the terrain is very unstable, so it really does make an amazing effort to get right through, let alone get that far while fighting a war. So no doubt we're only halfway through, but you've got so much respect for the way the Australians went about it. It was probably one of the toughest things I've done. I know the guys felt the same way. Not only walking up amazingly steep hills, but also trying to carry a stretcher and try and pretty much reenact what it would have been like back in 1942 with the injured soldiers. And yeah, it's quite amazing how they could actually get up the hill, especially only in twos, whereas we had 5s and 6s in each side. So it was extremely tough, and the boys are feeling it now over lunch, and it's going to take a while for them to get going before they head up the next hill, because they really have fatigued.
Monday on the couch, Kevin Bartlett Channel.
Keep your sandbag and the rope. If you lose either, and you can't give them in, when you get to the bottom, you'll have extra with our jack.
You all right, mate?
Who's that, man?
Yeah. Keep going, lad. Come on. Good work, mate. Good effort.
Get to our group as close as you can get to our group. Okay, drop her. I want you to empty the sandbags. Get rid of the sand. Here's a knife if you need to cut the string on the sandbag. Get rid of the sticks and keep the green thing. Put the sandbags loose. Quick. There's another group coming. You've got to pass that on the next group. Pass it on. You can give them the
Empty the sandbags.
Just tell the last. Pass on the sandbag. Pass on the sandbags.
Pass it on.
Oi, keep the green thing. Chuck the sticks out.
Man.
Chuck the sticks away.
Get in your pack all the sandbags there.
Who's that, man? Put the sandbags there.
I don't have any more.
Aussie, give us your knife. Yeah, Spider's got it. Okay.
It was a good test for the boys. It was probably our first chance to, I suppose, really bond together. We'll faced with a few challenges which were, carting the stretchers up like I suppose the diggers did back 60 odd years ago, and I was very impressed with I had 2 teams of a pretty young team. I had a couple of the rookies, a few of the new young boys in there, and they thoroughly impressed me. I thought we all worked pretty well together, and I suppose that the real test was at the end of the day when we got a bit of a lemon twister and had to cart 20 kilos of rocks on our backs, and really know what it felt like to be like a digger, I suppose, and cart that 35 kilos up the hill.
When we had the sandbags on our backs, that was about what they were carrying, and I can tell you it's a lot of weight, and we didn't have to worry about picking off Japs in the jungle. So I'll get a lot of respect for him, and just courageous, tough young man.
Sandbags down, sandbags down. Good touch, man.
The young guys that have just come in, like your Tommy Murphys and your Lance Franklins, and you could see today just, the hurt even for those guys. Very tough for everyone, but for these young guys, you could see how tough it really was for them. So you can only imagine what it must have been like for the soldiers carrying all those packs, not having any idea or any previous training about fighting, and how they would have handled the situation is, as I've said before, it's quite extraordinary.
Okay, so listen to the calls. Sometimes you'll have to slow up.
Been good today, actually. Been real good, mate. Been working hard. All right, Nick. Want to go, boys?
Push it up there. That's it, Mitch. On Stolly.
Good to have you, Smitty.
You start to get an appreciation of what our forefathers or the Australian soldiers went through back in 1942 over the Kokoda track. It is one of the ruggedest terrains you'll ever come across, and to think that they fought along the way as well as carrying those packs is extraordinary. You can't really explain how steep the hills are or how big the steps are. Every step is, it's a good 2 foot up, and the track is so thin that only one bloke can possibly carry the stretcher at each end. So what they must have gone through to get people up those hills is just extraordinary.
It's been a pretty tough day. It's been good to get to camp. Really enjoyed it so far. It's pretty rewarding getting to camp at the end of the day and just being able to relax and get into your ration pack. And yeah, look forward to hitting the track nice and early tomorrow morning.
What day are we up to? Day 4. Looking forward to another sandbag challenge. Not really, but anyway.
Over 60 years ago, a handful of young Australian diggers clambered along the treacherous Kokoda track and stemmed the seemingly invincible onslaught of Japan's Imperial Army, and they saved their country from enemy occupation. The whole campaign cost 1,300 Australian lives. Their average age, 21 years. They will never become old or embittered, just laughing kids forever.
It's been an amazing experience. I think the track sort of got to a few of us today. Never really knew what they meant by that, but when you're walking up hills and the terrain we've been covering, and then you find weapon pits and places where, you know, 2 army diggers from, you know, the 40s would have been dug into some ditch ready to, you know, shoot the Japs when they came over the crest. It sort of gets you a bit, and you know, it's physically very draining, but the emotional and the spiritual side of it is fairly important too.
Well, three things that, more than anything else, I want to come out of this with, from my point of view, and that's to do with discipline. The guys in that 39th Battalion were far, far, far less prepared than what you are as players to play footy. But the thing that made them successful, and they lost a lot of men, but the thing that made them successful is that they did what they were told. They did what they were told to a man. Didn't know any better. They just did what they did, and they were successful because of it. So that's the first lesson. Second lesson is in regard to sacrifice. Every one of us has got a story from this trip about how tough it was, whether you're a big prick like Spider who only had a quarter of the amount of food that he'd usually eat, or whether you're a little bloke like Harry Miller, where there's a little man in his head all along saying, I can't do this, I can't do this. But he conquered that little man in his head, and he stretched his boundaries far beyond what he thought he was capable of. And the last one is teamwork. Make no mistake, boys, that everyone's going to have a role to play this year, and it might not mean kicks or marks or handball, but it'll be just one of 22 when the brown and gold run out. And all we want you to do as coaches and as a footy club is to just play your role. Just like the Diggers did. One was on the machine gun, one was on lookout, one group of blokes went out to flank to see if the Japs were there. Everyone had their little role to play, and because the Diggers, each one of them, played their role, they fought back the enemy. Sometimes 6-1, sometimes 10-1. But because they just played their little bit, then they could salute at the end, knowing full well that there was no Premiership Cup or anything. And back in Australia, they didn't even get any recognition or acknowledgement for what they did. All it was acknowledgement between themselves. And you know what? That's all we're seeking too. Just acknowledgement from your mates that we've worked our arse off to get where we want to go. You know, sometimes that'll mean silverware at the end. Hopefully it does. But we're not going to die wondering because we haven't supported our mate. By hell or high water this year, let's make sure that everything we do, we work in numbers and we support one another, and we'll cop whatever position we finish on the ladder as a result of that. But we can work hard as a group. Well done, boys. Great effort.
You know, I feel for the way what the Diggers must have gone through, but I couldn't honestly sit here and tell you. I would never understand what they went through. It would have been. I would never understand what they went through, and I couldn't even begin to try and understand it. It would have been terrible. Absolutely terrible. Their rations, the amount of weight they had to carry. I couldn't understand it. You could never put yourself in their shoes.